All right. Hello,
Okay.
everybody. Good afternoon or morning if you now. Thank you all for coming. Today is going to be very exciting topic. We have, latest and greatest update. Um, like Brandon said, my name is Michael Obi. I'm the CEO of Spectrum Global Solutions. We do a lot of economic development work and access to capital here in the Cleveland community in Northeast Ohio generally. I also own a number of businesses. So I go through the something that you go franchise. We have 4 locations in Cleveland area. So not only that I teach the Streetwise MBA in Cleveland under the brand of Next Step program, I'm also heavily involved in managing a business like you and knowing how hard it is to make payroll, um, dealing with the whole issue of closing the locations and try to reopen. So I feel your pain. But the good news to that topic, we're going to focus on, for those that have not applied for any of this program, we're going to talk about and some of the programs that are out there on the federal and state, local level, but then dive a little deeper in the PPP. The workshop today is not about loan forgiveness per se, but I want to give you any update that I have. I have some good attorneys that have been following the legislation and some of the current changes that the Senate passed last night, and that there's a high expectation that Donald Trump is going to sign it. So I'll give you an update on that. So that's kind of the S going through today. So if you are ready, I think I'm gonna start sharing my screen so we can stay focused and stay on time. And I'm going to also turn on my clock, make sure that I stay within 25 minutes of the time so we have enough time for Q&A. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I hope everybody, if you could see my screen, thumbs up, so I know you can see it. Everybody, if you can't see it, just so let's go. The first thing, what I like to do when I do this session is start with a quote. Um, and the quote that I want to start here to set our mindset on what we're going to be doing today is for us not to forget, since the topic is access to capital, don't forget the basics of the capital market and lending. You know, there's a lot of generosities that are out there from the federal government. Everybody's showing us a lot of love, right? But once this pandemic is in, and the same banks are showing all this compassion, and I'm not saying they're not going to be compassionate afterwards, but they're in the business to lend money they know people are going to pay back. So they're still going to wear their hat as lenders to making sound loans. So don't get carried away by all this generosity that is coming through. So before we get too deep, I want to just kind of make sure that we don't forget that. The objectives for today is, getting to the mindset of number 2, strategies for your access to capital and cash management in general, because cash is really the king. And then we're going to touch on various funding opportunities that some you may already know, and some that may be new to you that you may not be paying attention to. Everybody's focusing on the idle loan and the PPP, but there are a lot of money out there at the state and local level there that you may want to be looking at. So we'll touch on those. And then how do you long-term position your business for continuum of capital? If you intend to stay in business for the long haul, which I hope you are, we have to have plan for their life after this pandemic. I don't want us to be so immersed in the pandemic that we're not thinking strategically in terms of capital and making sure your balance sheet looks good for continuum of capital. Okay, so what does mindset of a lender look like? How do they think? Number one is, anybody that gives you capital, if you're in a capitalistic society, which America expect something in return. Okay, you heard about no free lunch. That is the case when you are running a for-profit business. Even nonprofit that receive philanthropic dollars, there are always an expectation of deliverable KPI, things that nonprofit need to do. So anytime a bank gives you a loan, what are the things they want? They want their principal back, and they want interest. And the American there that want to make sure that the community that they're lending to are being revitalized and things like that. But always try to find out what whoever is giving you money is looking for. A good example of that is this PPP. To get the money was only 2 pages. Now to get it forgiven, there are 12 pages. Although that may be shorter as they're simplifying things down through Congress and SB administration. But the point is that will be forgiven is because they want you to get people out of unemployment roll. So that's what is the need for the government. They want you to use that money to hire people back. So there's always something the person on the other side expects. And then the next thing in terms of mindset, when you're dealing with people providing you capital, banks or angel investor, is they want to make sure you have credibility. Credibility in your financials. I'm glad you went through the financial analysis yesterday. In running your business. And also you demonstrate your ability to pay back the loan and keeping your promise. Integrity. That's very important. Business loan is a little tricky. It's not pure science. There's a lot of character-based lending out there, especially with the CDFIs. So they're not based solely on having a high credit score. I've seen people with 800 credit score that could walk into a dealership and get a brand new Mercedes, but they can't get $10,000 business loan. I'm sure there might be some people that have had that experience because business lending, integrity, your credibility and knowledge of running the business. So it's not pure science. And then of course, cash is king. Your balance sheet, how does that look? The worst time to get money is when you have no cash, when you have no money in the bank. It's better to get that access to capital when you have some liquidity. I know it sounds counterproductive. You need money so you can show up your financials, but the bank is saying, well, you need to have money. So, but the point is, they use a lot of analysis to determine whether you're going to have the ability to pay back. So always make sure that you leave some cushion of cash in your bank account in your balance sheet when you approach the bank. One little tip here, while I'm thinking about it, I want to just share with you. If you know that end of the year, there are some people that pay out bonuses at the end of the year. Your balance sheet, the cash section, there are some businesses that pay out all their cash before December 31st. So their balance sheet looks horrible December 31st, and which is usually the ending balance that you have for end of the year balance sheet. So if you know you have those type of situation, delay paying out those bonuses till January so that your cash will look strong when you send your 2019, for example, end of the year balance sheet. I just want to throw that out as I was thinking about that. Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk a little bit about the 2 federal programs that are out there now. The idle loan, that loan, if you have not applied yet, I will not suggest you waste your time applying for idle loan. Idle loan is the economic injury disaster loan. If you have already applied and you have not received an answer, don't worry about it. As long as you have your number, you are somewhere in the queue. And you could always call SBA to confirm that they have your application. Once they get to your application, you will receive the advance. And that advance is based on $1,000 per employee that you have. You know, if you have 10 employees, you could get up to $10,000, but no more than 10,000. If you have one employee, which would be you as a self-employed, if you don't have any other employee, you receive 1,000. And usually the money just gets into your account. There's no communication about that. So when you see the money, you know, that's what that is. Then after they approve your loan, you receive an email with a link for you to confirm that you still want the idle loan, and it gives you option to select which amount that you need. And, you know, whatever the amount that they give you, you know, if you have intention of staying in business and you have need for capital in the next 12 months, I recommend you take it, okay? Because that is a very friendly loan. It's 3.75% interest rate, and also is amortized over 30 years, which means your cash flow will look good because your monthly payment will be very, very low. I can't think of any lender out there that is making small business loan. Be lucky if you get 7-10 year amortization on a business loan today. The second is the PPP loan, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. That is really, it started out as a loan, but it will be forgiven if you meet the requirements. We're going to get a little deeper on that. Again, if you have not applied for that one, there's still about $150 billion left. A lot of people think they don't qualify, but anybody that is in business, even Uber drivers, 1099 people qualify. You as everybody that is on this call, if you have not applied for PPP, I recommend that you apply. Let them be the one to tell you you don't qualify. I see a lot of people say, well, I don't think I qualify for that. No, apply. Let them tell you don't qualify, okay? Because you are an employee of your business. So if you don't have payroll, they've made provision to use your tax return, the net income on your business as a basis for your payroll, okay? So they've made it very flexible for every small business to apply. A little highlight comparison, side-by-side look of the difference between the two, because that's where people get a little confused. Let's start from my right-hand side, since I just talked about PPP, is primarily payroll. Before today, it was 75%, actually before yesterday when Senate approved it, but it's very likely going to become law that 75% that need to go into payroll now has been lowered to 60%. So that gives you more flexibility to spend the money on utilities and rent and things like that. Now, in that you cannot spend more on payroll. You could spend the whole 100% on payroll. That's even better. That's what government wants. But they made this provision for those that don't intend to hire all their employees back because business is slow. If you're in a restaurant and you are operating at 50% capacity, you probably won't need to hire all your employees back. So this helps those people in that predicament. The other 40% could be spent on mortgage interest if you have mortgage. If you're renting, a rent payment, gas, water, telephone, internet, and then interest payment on pre-existing debt, but no principal. You can use principal payment towards this. Now, let's get a little deeper on the payroll cost. Payroll cost is not just the wages. You could also count separation if you pay someone severance, healthcare plan, retirement plan benefits. You could also count that towards the payroll cost. On the left side, with the of payroll, is really more generous in what you could spend the idle loan on. You could use it to pay off short-term loans, balloon payment, like credit cards or loans that are due within 12 months. You could also use it for payroll if you run out of PPP money on the payroll, but you cannot double dip. You can't count them on both sides. So you could use it for payroll and all that short-term financial needs of your. Brandon has this document for you. So I know some of you are writing. It's okay to take note, but you're going to get this in writing. So every time I'm saying, you're going to get a detailed comparison side by side. Of course, this comparison changed a little bit as of last night. That's why I put a little bit of it over here. And we're going to talk about some of those changes. And I'm sure you're going to have some questions when we begin to open it up for Q&A. State program. I go through this quickly because every state is different. Example, if state of Ohio is doing it, very likely your state is doing it too. So there are two things the state of Ohio has done to help small businesses. If your state has a state-managed workers' comp, BWC is Bureau of Workers' Compensation. If your state runs their own workers' comp insurance program, it's very likely that program is sitting on a lot of money, profit they've made. The governor, through executive order, permitted them to share the dividend from that insurance program to small businesses. So a lot of businesses receive about $5,000 check. The reason I bring that up is when you receive mail in this pandemic, make sure you open all your mail. There was another program I was involved in, I was facilitating, and one person probably thought that she threw the mail away. That was a check. So now she has to go because the workers come, they send you your bill, your invoice. So she thought it was an invoice that she already know what her premium is. She didn't know she was throwing away a check. So always make sure you understand what programs out there. And the check just automatically went to every business in Ohio that have employees or have that policy without any written notification. I just happened to be aware of it by reading, following what's going on with. Which leads to my second bullet here. If you're not already, please get in the mailing list of your local SBDC, Small Business Development Center, and different women business centers in your cities. Any entrepreneur program that is funded through the federal or state government, make sure you are a client of that program so you receive their email blasts and announcements. There's some meaningful and helpful information that you receive from them. Local governments here in Cleveland and the county that I'm in, they raise a lot of money and give out a lot of grants to businesses. And some businesses receive anywhere between $2,500 to $5,000. There was one that the city rolled out $1 million and businesses received $10,000. So always check your city hall, economic development department, and your county to see what program they have out there to help businesses. Because also the counties and city government, they received the CARES Act. So they're sitting on some money that was given to them by the federal government to help them in this pandemic. If you're a contractor and you do some work, your county and city buildings are probably they receive some money to help them retrofit a lot of their buildings. So there might be some work out there for people that are into construction and different things for the government. So look for opportunity. Mayor's office and the county executive offices. Okay, let's talk about positioning your business for life after the pandemic. Okay, continuum of capital. Number one, if you receive the PPP, your number one priority as far as strategy is to make sure you get your PPP forgiven. That's some free money that you don't have to worry about paying back. So do everything possible. Now that the time has been extended, I really can't imagine somebody not meeting this new requirement because it's so flexible now. But the key is documentation. Starting with your payroll, make sure you have access to your payroll company for all the reports. Your rent, make sure hopefully nobody here is paying rent with cash. Okay? So make sure you pay with check and it's clear that the money was used for rent, your utility bills. I put everything through my bill payment online. So you have record of everything and always put memo section what that payment is for. But that's the kind of that's our strategy. The good news on the second bullet is that the stimulus will probably continue. There gotta be still some things out there to make sure that people get back to work. Because I heard today news that came out today, almost I think 1 million more people went on unemployment. So I think 1 out of every 4 or 5 Americans are unemployed. So the government is going to continue to do things to stimulate the economy. The bad news is the longer this thing goes, the tighter banks will get because it'll be too scary to lend money if you're not sure a business is going to make it. And banks don't want to make loans to people that are going to go out of business. Okay, so always keep in mind that balancing act. So try to take advantage of more of the grant and less emphasis on the loan side. Now, if you're in a business that is prospering during this pandemic, and there are some, if you're in food business, if you're in some kind of medical lab and things like that, business is good for those types of people. Some construction companies are doing well in this pandemic. So then it's okay to plant or whatever. But if you're not in those high growth industry in this pandemic, I will focus more on the grant or the idle loan and less on trying to borrow money right now because your balance sheet needs to be strong when you really need it. And then you need to develop strategy. Banks are going to be looking for how are you adapting? How did you pivot with this new environment? Customer behaviors are changing. So how are you adapting to the new buying behavior? If your website is not nimble to deliver your food or your widget to somebody's doorstep, you gotta focus on putting some money into that technology, okay? And then tell your story quantitatively and qualitatively. Okay, let's talk about the latest update, the features of the forgiveness. Number one, we talked about going from 75% to 60%. No need to emphasize that, that's clear. They've extended the 4 weeks to spend the money. And then there was a provision for giving people time to like June 30th to get to the FTE level, to get 100% of their forgiveness in place. That with this new legislation, it's been extended to December 31st. So which allows abundance of time for you to achieve that FTE level. So, but everything I'm giving you here is kind of high level. You still need to talk with your bank. A lot of banks are doing webinars where they're going deeper and they're creating websites. Apply online for the forgiveness. Don't be in a hurry. You got enough time to apply for it. So you're gonna have to, like, December 31st, apply for forgiveness. So don't be in a hurry to try to apply for forgiveness right now. This is more educational and getting information at this point. And then I have a page I'm gonna open up to give you a little more details on this. Actually, we're just gonna email it to you. There's a great attorney here that has really done a nice job summarizing this new legislation. So I'm gonna email it to Brandon with more details under each one of these bullet points, so you can read it up, bored and can't fall asleep at night. Okay, all right. So in closing, and then we'll open up for questions. The environment we are in, I found this quote and it's really very insightful. I'm gonna read it out. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So basically, take a deep breath and relax, right? Relax. Don't try too hard. And I'm glad they extended this PPP. So be strategic in your reopening and coming back. Hopefully that's why it's so important. All that, those help you could get. So you're not in a hurry to try to reopen too fast and not get your house in order to be compliant. It will take time to return to a true sense of normalcy. It will be businesses that are nimbler in their practices that hold the advantage over businesses that are unable or unwilling to change and adapt. So always be flexible in to the change. So that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. I'll stop the recording.